Why is it so easy to grow certain muscles like our chest? But when it comes to muscles like our arms, especially our biceps, some people have so much trouble. They can try all kinds of volume, variations, frequencies, diet. No matter what they do not see the growth they want to see. It's all about the conventional methods that we were taught to train by and how these methods affect different muscle groups. I will break down exactly why you struggle to grow your biceps. Relate that to certain different muscle groups so that you can maybe try to change the stimulus you're applying to them. I will also personally tell you different ways that I was able to grow my biceps, different things that I did that you can also try changing your mindset, changing your methods, and try to see success the same way that I did. Without further ado, let's get into the video. So the first thing that we need to bring up is the bench press. So when we take it, for example, the chest, we look at we look at the movement like the bench press. The bench press, when we compare that to the bicep curl, probably one of, if not the biggest differences when it comes to why people are able to see so much growth with like chest and why people are struggle to see growth with biceps. The first thing that I can tell you, which is not, the answer that most of you are looking for, but bear with me because I think it's still the most important point, is that we are way more motivated to do the bench press than we are the bicep curls. The bench press is an extremely fun movement. It's one of the main staples, especially in North America gym culture. It's always, do you go to gym? Okay, what's your bench? So everyone's very motivated to do well on the bench. They want to see their numbers go up. They want to hit the 2 plates, the 1 plate, whatever it is, wherever they're at. Everyone likes to bench. Everyone likes to see their progress go up on the bench press. On top of that, the bench press is a lot of fun to do. I remember when I first started doing it, seeing the progress. It was an amazing time. I was like, I'm gonna be so strong on this. I'm gonna keep going up forever. Nothing's gonna stop me. When we take a look at a movement like the bicep curls, I feel like a lot of people are not very motivated to do it. I see people look in the gym doing their bicep curls. Even if they're really struggling, they don't seem like they're really wanting to put the maximum load onto their biceps to feel the tension as much as possible. It looks more like they're struggling because they just want to push through the workout, if that makes sense. It's like they're mentally struggling instead of physically. Even when it comes to other movements that definitely involve a lot of biceps and we'll see them grow, when you look at the rows or the pull downs, even for those ones, no one really talks about them. You don't really see it that often. Obviously, you can't talk about your 1 rep row max or whatever, but for me personally, this is where maybe I differed from a lot of people. I always loved the rows. I always loved pull day a lot more than bench press or push day. For me, it was the most fun. I love to see the pump. I love to see my biceps bulging, the veins coming, popping out. I love seeing not only the pump, but to see my numbers go up, trying all those different variations, using lots of momentum, using very little momentum, trying the different grips. For me, pulling, rowing, doing the curls, I always loved that. Those are the videos where I got the best clips, had the best pump. The best videos I have is on TikTok or whatever, is literally me either posing, my physique in the mirror, or it's me doing some kind of bicep variation or doing some kind of rowing variation where it's like you can see the biceps. So for me, I was very motivated to do it. Whereas a lot of other guys, I feel like, to me, pull day is their least favorite day. It's almost like a chore that they have to get through. Doing those movements is a chore that they have to get through. So your mentality approaching these kind of different movements is definitely a huge factor. It's probably the number one factor, the motivator that behind how hard you'll try on each of these movements matters a lot more than you think. So, try to think of something that's going to motivate you to do these more. Like think of the pump, or think of maybe taking a video while you're doing it. These are what worked for me, but you can try to figure out any other reason. Maybe compete with your friends, see you can curl more. These kind of things will help you go a long way. All right, number 2 is overload. If you didn't know already, overload is a huge driver when it comes to muscle growth. It's one of the biggest factors. If you're overloading, you will definitely see growth. With the bench press or with other chest movements, it's very easy to overload. It's very, for the bench press, you're adding, you can literally add 5 pounds to the bar at a time. So it's a very small amount relative to how much you're doing. Let's say you're doing 150 pounds or 170 pounds. Adding 5 pounds is a very, very small amount. It's less than a 5% increase. So this allows you to continuously see slow gains, which is the key to seeing muscle growth in those areas. When you look at movements that incorporate the biceps, when you look at especially the curls, bicep curls, it's very, very difficult to, if you want to make a jump, let's say from a 30-pound dumbbell to a 35-pound dumbbell, that is over a 15% increase in weight. So it becomes very difficult to overload the biceps. Once you get past those noob gains where you make really rapid progress, making 15% increases, making these large jumps of 5 pounds, you're only using 30 or 40 pound dumbbells, it's very difficult to progressively overload. What's going to happen is you're going to end up cheating, you're going to end up not doing the reps correctly, and everything's going to break down. So the things that you needed to see for growth in a set are no longer happening because you're struggling with the weight. So it becomes very difficult. In order to overcome this, we need to do variations, we need to do drop sets, we need to incorporate different tactics and strategies to circumvent this problem, because simply trying to progress linearly on the biceps is going to be very difficult. It's going to be a very long, grindy process when we compare that to the bench press, where it's more linear, it's more clean. Next, let's talk about the different movements incorporated with each of these muscle groups and what we use in order to see the growth in them. The chest, when you look at the bench press, is so good at naturally hitting your chest. You're going to hit your chest very, very well with a very good weight. As long as you're following some kind of, proper routine, straight sets, intermediate routines, whatever it is, you're using weights that are challenging, you're going to see growth when you do the bench press. You're going to see growth in your chest because the range of motion is perfect. It stretches your chest fully. If you touch the bars to your chest, you put your chest into a full stretch, and then you have to use your chest to power that bar up. So you're stretching your chest maximally, and then you're contracting it as hard as you can. It's the perfect way to grow your chest. When you look at different movements like the flies, it's a very natural thing in order to have our hands out, and hug something. That's very natural. So we just need to do that and overload that. Dips, they call that the upper body squat. It's a very great movement. Again, similar to the bench press. We have the chest in a very stretched position, and then we contract it forcefully to push ourselves up. So basically, we have everything that we need to grow our chest in the reps of just doing the movements. So as long as we're following a proper routine, the chest is going to see substantial amounts of growth. When we compared it to the biceps, when we compare, let's look at the curl. The curl can be done without stimulating the biceps at all. People cheat the curl so much. I've seen my friends do this, and once in a while I see people in the gym do it. It's like they're just doing it. Especially one of my friends, he did this a lot because he just cared about the weight. In this video, you can see that I'm just chucking the weight up. Even though technically it's a curl, it's a bicep curl, the range of motion is there. It's not being applied. I'm not thinking about the tension. If we compare it to the bench press, we look at, the tension, the stretch, the contraction. None of those are happening very optimally. You can see that I'm just throwing the weight up. So user error when it comes to biceps is a lot more plausible. It's a lot more possible. When you're doing the curls, you want to make sure, you have the full tension throughout the entire set, you don't drop tension. You have the full stretch at the bottom. You're controlling the negative of the movement. You're not just dropping the weight. You're controlling the positive. When you get to the top, you're fully contracting. You're squeezing and locking out that muscle. All of these things matter a lot. Obviously, when you look at the bench press, it's very idiot-proof. All of these things happen for you naturally. But when you look at the biceps, even when you look at rows and stuff like that, rows, obviously, you're incorporating your back. But on top of that, you can use lots of momentum, and your form can also vary greatly. So you need to be more mindful of these things when you're approaching these kind of movements, when you're trying to grow your biceps. Make sure that you can hit all of these things. So control the negative. You don't want to just complete the rep and then drop the weight. You want to maintain tension downwards as well. You want to control that weight so you can keep tension throughout the whole set. The whole point is to exhaust the muscle, to feel the time under tension, 30 to 45 seconds, however long it is. You want to feel it for the whole set. You don't want to just pop it up at the top of the rep. Number 2, you want to stretch fully at the bottom. So you don't want to stop here and then go back up. You want to bring the weight all the way down to the point where your arm is straight, and then you bring it back up. Number 3, you're not throwing the weight up with momentum. You're making sure that you're using your bicep to bring it up. If you're not sure, have a friend touch your bicep and make sure that you're only using your bicep. Make sure your body is not moving. Make sure your elbow's not swinging forward, your shoulder's not pushing forward. Make sure that you actually are moving as much of that weight as possible with your bicep only. Number 4, make sure to fully lock out and squeeze that muscle at the top. Same way we want to lock out our bench press. We want to lock in the bicep curl. We don't want to just bring it up and down immediately. We want to have that squeeze, that contraction at the top. It's responsible for a lot of growth. So make sure you're completing the reps properly and squeezing and locking out that bicep rep. The bench is so amazing because you can't really cheat on the bench, right? I guess you can cheat with like the lifting your butt up and stuff like that, but you can't cheat the way your chest muscles are incorporated. You're forced to stretch fully and push maximally. With biceps, it's just not like that. You have to take accountability yourself for that in order to see that happen. If you don't, you won't see the growth that you want to see. The next point I want to bring up is mechanical tension. So because the biceps is very small, we can't use heavy weights, right? We're using like 30, 40 pound dumbbells. It becomes hard to stimulate growth if you're not able to lift heavy at least some of the time. Let me tell you, when I grew my biceps in my last big bulk that I did, I didn't do bicep curls at all because I had so much mechanical tension from all the rowing, all the pulling down, all the pull-ups that I did. And because I was very motivated to do it, like I said, so my biceps were naturally big and I didn't do any curls on their own. It goes to show you the power of mechanical tension. When you compare, movements like the bench press, you're using hundreds of pounds, you're putting hundreds of pounds on your chest to do a bench press. And the bicep curl, it's a very low weight comparatively. So if you want to look into doing bigger weights, you want to look into, specifically you want to do those narrow grip, especially if you want to incorporate it at the start of your workout, look into doing maybe chin-ups. Chin-ups are very good because they have that narrow grip there. You have the supinated palms and you're pulling your whole body weight. And if you can even overload that with the belt, then you can try doing that as well. If you do that, I guarantee you will see growth in your biceps because you're incorporating so much mechanical tension. Even Mike Mentzer said it himself that the best biceps workout is the close grip, palm supinated pull downs. So it goes to show you how much of a role mechanical tension plays when it comes to your growth. Now this is the best variations to do. This is the best variation to do. If you're doing it at the start of your workout, I'd recommend doing chin-ups. And if you're doing it later on, I'd recommend doing the pull downs like Mike Mentzer said. Of course, any pulling movements will incorporate your biceps to a certain degree. In fact, most of them to a high degree. It's just important to be mindful. Do the things I told you about your biceps. Do the things I told you to work on your biceps from the curls and incorporate these into rows as well, such as, making sure that you're controlling the negative, making sure that, you're feeling the tension, you're locking in each of your reps. All of these things matter a lot. Be sure to take your biceps, your rows, and any pulling training very seriously if you want to see the growth. Last thing I want to say is that I feel like with biceps, we have a very easy excuse that I hear a lot of people using, which is that they can just blame genetics and then move on with it. So biceps, a lot of people say, I have bad genetics, and then they just move on. It's done. It's very easy to blame genetics. A lot of people do it, and it seems like a very reasonable, plausible thing to say. So instead of working around the problem, finding ways to solve the issue, figuring out what the issue is, a lot of people just blame genetics and move on. With the bench press, you can't just say, oh, I'm genetically not good at bench press. It's kind of it's almost like you're saying I'm genetically weak. No one wants to say that. No one wants to be like that. So everyone will try their best to do things like the bench press to have a good chest. Whereas when it comes to the biceps, it's much more excusable to say, oh, I just don't have good bicep genetics, so that's why I don't have good biceps. In my opinion, this is a very weak excuse. Don't be one of those guys who does this. Personally, I feel like this excuse hurts a lot more people than they realize. If they just tried their best and actually did their due diligence to take responsibility for their growth, they would see much better success than if they were to just blame genetics. Don't be like one of these people. Take responsibility for your bicep growth. Don't blame genetics. It's something I see a lot, and I feel like it's holding a lot of people back. There might be 1 in 1,000 persons who has bad bicep genetics, but everyone else is just using it as an excuse. Don't be one of those people. Anyways, guys, with that being said, it's gonna bring us towards the end of this video. I hope you got some useful insight from it. I just wanted to share with you some things that I noticed, some patterns I noticed, things people are doing wrong, mentality-wise, physically, everything else. I hope you got a lot of information from it.